Well, good morning. Today I am going to change the spark plugs in my Yamaha Super 10. Pretty straightforward job for those who are fairly mechanically able. It should be pretty straightforward for those who aren't. So what I'm going to do here is just go through the different steps of getting to the plugs inside the on top of the engine, which is buried under the tank, which requires a few bits to be removed. So first of all, I've got my 4 brand new spark plugs. I've gone for the NGKRs. The proper plug type for this model is the CPR 8EB9. It's really important you have a proper spark plug socket for this. What's the difference between a spark plug socket and a standard socket is it's got a rubber ring up inside, because you don't want to be dropping the plugs out. So when the plug goes into the socket, it stays in there. So you can take it into the engine and screw it in. So I wouldn't recommend using just a normal 10mm socket, because you'll probably drop the plugs, you could cross thread them, you can have all sorts of problems. This is a Draper. I bought them with the plugs, came from motorcyclesparkplugs.com I think it was, but you can obviously get the wrench and the socket from Halfords, etc. So there's my bike, filthy, gets used every day for work and obviously runs at weekends. So this side panel here has to come off, as does this panel here. You can see I've got a jibby crash bars. It's not a problem, the panels still come off, the bars do not need to be removed. And once we've got the panels off, we need to take the seat off, and then inside under here are 2 bolts which allows the tank to lift up, and then we can get to spark plugs on top. So I'm going to take off those panels now. There's really only one tricky bit with these panels, and there's a couple of little black plastic plugs which sit up in here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see them. It's too dark. But basically what you have to do is when you take the side panel off, you just put your hand behind those and just pull the side panel and they pop off. And the reason why you want to put your hand there is to catch them, because you don't really want to be losing them. On the right hand side, this black panel comes away separately to the rest of the cowling. On the left hand side, it's all one piece. So you see I've got my jibby bars there. These are quick release Allen bolts, they don't unscrew all the way around. It's like a quarter turn and they just pop out. So we just carefully lift that out, and that's the electrics exposed. I'm now going to undo the remaining 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then pop out as black plastic plugs. Those little black plastic plugs I spoke about, this is one of them. There's 2 on either side, and they've got a pin in the middle which pushes back, and the idea is when it goes into the cowling, it forces the plug apart as it pushes in. So when you put these back in, pull the pin out like that, try and get focus, and then when you push you just push that through push the whole thing through the hole, and then with your finger just push that bit in, and that clicks into place. Now these go, you can see now hopefully, got one there, one there. When you pull the cowling off, just put your fingers behind just to hold them in place, give the cowling a good pull, and they'll just pop off, and then you can just lift these out and put them to one side. I use this little blue magnetic tray to keep things in, so don't lose stuff. Now we've still got the side panels off. Again, both sides come off with a good jibby bars, no problem. Seat off. All I've got to do now is lift the tank up. I have to undo this bolt under here, and then the tank pivots on this, and the idea is it then lifts up, giving us access to the airbox and the top of the engine. Okay, I've got the tank up. Probably a good time to say I've never actually done this particular job before, so a bit of a learning experience for me too. So just removing these 2 bolts from either side of the tank allows it to lift up. Now I was expecting it just to lift straight up, but there was some resistance. There's a couple of pipes which came off, which go onto these 2 here. There's nowhere near long enough to go up, so I imagine they're supposed to come off. Okay, so just for extra security, I've just put a bungee onto the tank here, just hooking it onto the top box just to hold it back. but also there's a couple of stops down at the bottom. You can't really see it. I need to get a better lighting in my garage. There's a couple of stops, just eking them over the top of that helps to keep it up. Okay, so next stage we need to get the air filter and air box off. So here's mine with the cover off. Pretty straightforward. There's the cover. There's a bunch of screws around the outside, but there's a little gotcha because there's one in the middle as well down in that hole. There's a rubber bung. Like that, just pull it out. Long screwdriver. You don't need to take the screw out, just leave it in there because it'll drop back in when we put the bike back together. I need to get better lighting in my garage, so air filter box, subject to doing it, is a bolt there, and it'll be the same one on the other side over there. And we need to undo these two little clamps under there. I don't know if you can quite make them out. Just the small Allen head in there. So we'll undo those and then bring that out, and then hopefully the plugs should be sitting underneath. Well, we're getting there. The air filter box is now off. There's a little plug on the right hand side of the air filter. It's just like a little serrated piece there. You just press up with your thumb and pull it off. And also there's a plug, a pipe which goes onto a little thing at the bottom. You can lift it up quite a long way, get your pliers onto that, squeeze it in and just ease it off. And see the throttle body. So finally we can see our 4 plugs. Each one with the coils sitting on top. 10mm bolts holding them into place. I'll tell you something, I do miss my old Harley and Triumphs and all the rest of it where you just change the plugs. You didn't have to strip half the bike down first. But I guess that's the price you pay for this modern stuff. So, yeah, plugs out next. We'll try and, I don't have a compressor. I mean, really you should have one to blow away all the dirt so nothing falls into the cylinders when we're taking the plugs out. Well, I just have to use a brush and make best how I can. I'd highly recommend just laying a rag over the throttle bodies and any pipe work, etc., because you do not want to be dropping dirt, bolts, snot, anything else that might be heading down into the throttle body. So just anything, just to cover it all up. So turning a fairly straightforward job into a major job because you dropped a screw into the throttle would not be good. So we've got our first plug top coil out of the bike. Take a little bit of wriggling. You disconnect the plug. Again, it's just like press down on it on the back of the plug and it pulls out. Just take a little bit of wriggling, gets looser and looser, and finally it slides out. And then sitting on the bottom of there inside the engine will be the spark plug. And that's why it's so important to have a spark plug wrench with a rubber boot around it. So our spark plug is, can't really tell, lurking in the bottom of that hole. Now I'm going to do these one by one. So yeah, next stage, get that out, put the new one in, put it all back together, move on to the next one, the next one, and the next one. Taking the air filter box off, I noticed that the air filter, even though it's not due to be changed yet, is absolutely filthy. So I've got a spare one, so I'm going to put that in now. Okay, so job finished. These are the plugs I took out. Sorry, bunch of excuses for spark plugs. You can see the water's been getting down past the coils into the bottom of the plug hole. They're quite wet, and the bike was running like a bit of a dog the other day, and it was chucking it down the rain. It was hesitating a lot, which made me think it could be a plugs issue, but I'm quite surprised to see the water in there. So once I'd got all the new plugs back in, it took a little bit of starting because all the water that was sat in the bottom of these 4-inch recesses then went down into the cylinders. But after a couple of presses of the button, it finally spluttered into life, and now it's running like a dream. The bike's all back together, and I'm going to take it for a test ride in a minute. Don't expect there to be any problems. The 2 pipes I mentioned earlier that were hanging off the bottom of the tank, they're actually breathers. So it's these 2 pipes running up here. They run along just over the top here and onto the tank. So all you need to do is just pull those out of the bracket there, just lift them out like that, and then when you lift the tank up, they'll just lift with it so they don't come disconnected from the fuel tank. Yeah, so like I say, also found that the air filter was absolutely hanging, so it already feels a bit more responsive on the throttle. I started it up without the air filter cover back on the top, so it was taking air straight from the atmosphere, and it was really responsive on the throttle. That's just cold, just give it a little rev, it picked up really quick. So I might think about getting some high flow air filters at some point to speed it, get that fuel in there a bit quicker, get it picking it up a bit faster. So yeah, job done. Gonna go for a little test ride just up and down the road now. But yeah, quite a big job just to change 4 spark plugs. Quite surprised how much is involved, but like I said earlier, it's a modern bike. I guess that's the price you pay. Contemplating maybe fitting some sort of guard underneath, up inside here, to stop the water spraying on top of the engine and getting down into those plug sockets. I mean, the water's not a problem too much really, but I think if we can reduce the amount of splash going up in there, that'd be better. I mean, I've got the old mudguard extender, or if you're American, fender extender. I do like my British terms. I have a side stand, I don't have a jiffy stand, etc, etc. These are my little fault protectors during the winter, keep all the crap off. Anyway, I hope you found this video to be useful, and at least you know how to change the plugs in an air filter now. Bye bye.